Today's episode's brought to you by Team USA's Luck of the Draw.
Drop the beat.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to High Noon Podcast, the competitive Overwatch podcast. I am your host, Blevins. With me, as always, is Deathblow. What's up, buddy?
Not too much. Hopefully I'm actually here this time for
Yes,
take two.
I believe you are, and you're actually not muted, which is awesome, at least from my perspective. But someone in the chat can tell us if he is still muted or not. But we're gonna truck along, and this is the type of stuff where you only know that we messed up horribly if we bring it up, or if you're here for the live show Mondays, 7 p.m. Eastern, twitch.tv/theblevins. Oh my God, I just realized we forgot to go to High Noon, twitch.tv/High Noon Podcast. If we remember, we're going to do this next week.
Yes, 100% next week. We will be live recording on twitch.tv/High Noon Podcast.
Yes.
So head on over there and follow us now, so that way you get the notification once we actually do go live.
And you can tweet at us to remind us to do this, because I am an idiot. But that's
fair.
That's not news. That's just olds. But let's get right into it. We have another interview here at the end of the show, so stick around for that. We've got Jake, the captain from Team USA. USA. So definitely going to want to hear that. But before we get into that, we've got some new patron hype. Got some big hitters, and some big Discord contributors. First up, we've got Crickles at the $10 patron level. Huge shout out to him. Been a huge contributor to the Discord as of the last couple of weeks. So huge shout outs to Crickles. And the message that Crickles has for us is, and I quote, "Zarya washes down mini divas with double scoop protein shakes. Crickles, the Zarya main." So, as you can see, if you become a patron over at patreon.com/High Noon Podcast, at any patron level, we will read your message, no matter how good, bad, or otherwise. Actually, that's not true. We won't read anything that violates Twitch terms of service, but it goes without saying. But it can be as dumb or as awesome or prolific as you want. We will read it.
Or as awkward for the Blevins as you want.
Yes,
that's also
as awkward for me as you want. I will read it. But the patronage did not stop there. We also got $5 patronage from Thornrain, who has also become a big contributor, not only to the High Noon Podcast Discord, but also to the greater Overwatch ecosystem, Overwatch esports ecosystem.
He's basically an investigative journalist, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on, but uncovered some big Overwatch League news, and it happened in our Discord first, and we were actually able to announce it first on Twitter, and then clue in ESPN and tell them what's up, and then they were reporting on it. Like minutes later. It was a lot of fun. So yeah, we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Yeah,
and Death, you mentioned here that Thorn is also doing some open division interviews and recordings or something like that.
Yeah, we put out that call for anybody that wants to create any content about either the the future contenders after the Overwatch League is fully formed, or the Open Division, and kind of cover the developmental league stuff. We do what we could to give you guys a shout out. Thornrain has already put out at least 1 or 2 episodes of what he calls the Open Division Quick Play. I'm fairly certain that is the name. And now Open Division has wrapped up, and he is trying to lock up an interview with the winners of that as well. So I believe you can find that on SoundCloud. If you have any questions about where to find it, Thorn is super active in our Discord, so join that. Just shoot him a message, ask him, or ask myself or the Blevins, and we'll talk to him. We'll figure it out. We want you guys to be able to find that if it is at all a question that you want to, or something you're looking for, I should say.
Yes, and Thorn, if you're listening, if you have an official statement that you want us to read out next episode, you know where to find us. But again, huge thanks to Crickles, and Thornrain. And also huge thanks to all the patrons and actually everyone in the Discord channel. You guys have really pushed up the just pushed us to another level in terms of really feeling like a community. I know, and I don't want to go too deep into the woods and the sob, not the sob story, but the sappy story. But Death and I, we had a core group of fans for the Hearthstone podcast. But there was never, there was the sense of community, but it wasn't in the same way with the Discord channel and the patrons and all that. So huge shout outs to all you guys. If you do want to join the Discord, it is now public. Just head on over to highnoonpodcast.com. There is a link there. And if you want to become a patron, there's no obligation to it. All the episodes will always be free. But if you do want to, patreon.com/highnoonpodcast is the place. And you can make us do stupid stuff too. So that is all. Just
to get it out of the way fast, though, it's been a while since we've had an iTunes review to read for you guys. We normally do them at the end of the show. I just want to give you guys a heads up and a call to action here. It really, really helps us quite a bit to move up those rankings. They're the currency podcast deal in. So please, please, please head over to our iTunes page and leave us a 5-star review. Helps more than the money on Patreon. Yes. It helps more than you could possibly comprehend, because I don't fully comprehend how much it helps us. It's just, all I know is it's gold for us. It's in the number one thing anyone can do to show us some support and help us out.
That is true. Although the last thing I will say about all this for this episode is that we are getting ominously close to the host stream showdown thing that we put in place a while ago. We're not that far from that goal.
What is it?
Where we have a 12-hour stream.
Oh god, it's all gonna have to be streamed from you, because my PC can't do it anymore. It literally just starts smoking and exploding.
Well, we will figure something out, because
we promised it. It'll happen.
Promised it will happen. So check that out, and we can figure out all the details once it happened. But we are with this big patron weekend. We're getting pretty close. So. That's all I'll say about that this week, but let's move right along to what did we do last week. Death, anything fun or exciting for you?
I had too much fun and excitement this past week, to be perfectly honest with you. So the new team I was talking to you guys about, it is official. We're not we're a newly formed team. I'm not even sure what the name will be off the top of my head yet. I don't know that that's been decided. It might be V3, but I don't know if that's just an old name or whatever's going on. So everything's still... Voucher, man. Everything is still really new, but we have, I believe, hammered down the full 6 on the roster, and working with some really good players now. Our shot caller Finale, actually, I believe, did some analyst work for, I believe, LG in the past. Oh, nice. So definitely a more advanced insight. Like, I have a notebook now where I take notes and stuff.
Oh, nice.
Much more legit operation than I'm used to, and it's been a lot to get used to. Yeah. So yeah, like team meetings and stuff like that, where we discuss how we're doing. It's been really eye-opening and honestly helpful from a perspective of, I want to do coaching. So it's given me new things that I can use and go talk to my other teams with that I'm working with on a coaching level. So really happy about that. Also, it was everybody's fantasy football draft weekend, I think, this weekend. At least it's by far the most popular, and I had like 2 simultaneous ones going on at the same time as the Game of Thrones season finale. Oof. And then I had to leave those, go straight into a scrim. I mean, it was a crazy weekend and a crazy week overall. So really happy for things to hopefully settle down a little bit here over the next couple weeks, and just get to and all that while I'm fitting in all these Contenders matches. So it's been a crazy week nonetheless for me, but a great one, because all of that stuff is super fun.
Yeah, that is way more exciting than mine was. Although I did have a pretty good weekend. I saw a concert for the first time in a while. Haven't seen a concert in a while. It was Green Day. I'm not a huge fan of Green Day, but I know a lot of people are. My girlfriend is. So that was fun.
I hope you had the time of your life.
Oh my God, please, just...
Got him.
All right. Well, this is actually the last episode of High Noon Podcast. We will be looking for a new host. But that I was at the amusement park, which is where the concert actually was at Darien Lake. It's a cool place if you've never been. We got this isn't me specifically, but we found a fan of the show on Twitter who's actually in the Buffalo area, which is kind of cool. He tweeted at us. I don't have it up right now because I'm lame and I wasn't planning on doing this, but if any of you are in the West, we'll just say greater Western New York area, and you're fans of the show, tweet at us or let us know. We'll definitely show you some props. But besides that, pretty much same old, same old. Saw the season finale of Game of Thrones.
Insert spoilers here.
That's all I have to say about that. But we will move right along without spoiling anything to what did you guys do last week? And like we mentioned before, Thorn Rain really... this was a really cool experience because I was actually at the concert, or I was actually at the amusement park when this was going on in Discord, but Thorn Rain was doing basically some investigative research.
Because who doesn't spend their Saturday afternoons searching the trademark applications?
The trademark applications.
Told you, he's an investigative journalist now, and it was a really, really impressive find by him. So big shout outs to him, and really, really happy and proud that he was like bringing it to our Discord first and let us tweet it and put it up on Reddit and things like that. So kind of helped us break the story while taking none of the credit. I mean, we didn't do anything. Like, he just posted this link. He goes, "Hey, this looks like a thing," and I'm like, mother of God, like that's definitely 100%.
This is actually is.
Yeah, 100% this is news. And yeah, it is. We might as well just, stop beating around the bush and tell you exactly what it is. NetEase filed for trademark rights to the name Shanghai Dragons. So that will, in all likelihood, and that was, he kind of sent it over towards him. And he was actually able to confirm that, and he, posted confirmation of that himself a little while after the fact. But yeah, all props go to Thorn Rain. No matter what anybody tells you, he's the one that figured that out and broke that story. Nobody was talking about that first, and I would guess he was Jacob's first source.
Yeah, I mean, he was right there. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of cool that even though we did literally nothing, will always be somewhat a part of the Shanghai Dragons. Even though we have literally nothing to do with it, we just did nothing. We did as little as possible, which was actually nothing. But yeah, huge shout outs to Thorn Rain. Guys, follow him on Twitter at Thornrain, which is THORNRAYNE on Twitter. I mean, you can also always catch him in the High Noon Podcast Discord. Super active there as well. But yeah, just a really cool. It's just a really cool thing to be a part of in some way. It's like, man, again, we didn't actually do it, but we broke a story. It's just really cool. But that will lead us over to my favorite segment of the show.
Overwatch Today, Meme of the Week.
That is right, the Meme of the Week. And this one was really great for me. It wasn't an I Need Healing meme, taking a break off of those, but it was a Rick and Morty meme. So, which Deathblow being the only person in the world that doesn't like Rick and Morty for some reason.
Not funny.
Yeah, well, interesting choice. Interesting move. The first panel is a Mr. Meeseeks talking to Jerry, and Jerry saying, "Help me get to the top 500." Mr. Meeseeks going, "Can do!" And then the next screen being placement matches are completed, being in bronze, literal 700 SR. And
was it your placement results?
It actually was.
Oh, okay.
Overwatch Today had to ask me to use those, and I allowed it. And then it is a group of Meeseeks just saying that they want to die. So, top quality memeage by Overwatch Today. Head on over to Instagram. Follow his page. It's Overwatch Today on Instagram. All the best memes all the time. Overwatch Today. I don't know if that's a tagline, but he should definitely use that. Uh, but let's move right along to
It's tournament talk.
we have got some contenders to talk about. Death, you want to talk a little bit about this week in contenders?
Yeah, so another week of surprises. I mean, maybe not on the level of surprises that we had last week, but nonetheless, there's not zero surprises in this one. So we'll take that and run with it. And another weekend of upsets. I'm declaring it here right now. But taking a look at the EU side of things first, we did have Misfits go up against Giganti, and this one went kind of as expected here. I think Misfits has been around. Giganti's kind of formed and a little bit on the newer side. So I definitely think, that was definitely the anticipated outcome of that match, and it really carried out. And it wasn't really super close. It was not, I'm super busy this weekend, so I'm sorry, but there's only a couple matches that I was able to pay super close attention to, and this one didn't quite right there because of the score. So, but yeah, Misfits ran away with that one, took that 4-0, and they now sit at the top of the leaderboard for the groups. They are tied, however. Yep. They are tied, however, with 1-2-3, who also did a really good job this week, and another 4-0 win. So 8-0 in maps for both Misfits and 1-2-3 as they get the win over Bazooka Puppies. Looking on, we had Gamers Origin again. Leaf, Doomfist. It's ridiculous. It's real. It's here. It's not going anywhere. 4-0 win over Team Singularity there. Now, the close one of this bracket was United versus Cloud9. At the end of the 4 maps that they play, they were tied up, so they had to go to a 5th map, and United ended up taking that one. So 3-2 win for them. And kind of surprising, right? Because they were the champions last time around, and right now they are sitting at 4th in the group stage. It was good enough to advance if it ended after this week. Thankfully, it doesn't. We got a lot more Overwatch to play out, but we'll have to keep an eye on them because Cloud9 really looked like they struggled last week, and now they really competed hard against United here, and I thought really gave me a lot more hope that they might bounce back within this tournament and do a lot of work. So I really look forward to seeing them continue on, as well as United try to get back into the swing of this new meta here. Really seems to be shaking things up. But looking at the leaderboard again, that's Gamers Origins in 3rd place, 2-0, just like the top 2, but just one map loss is good enough to drop them to 3rd. So that is a huge surprise looking at it from the beginning of the tournament. I don't think many people would have expected that. Probably would have placed them towards the bottom, if not at the bottom, and now they're shaking up the top 4, looking to advance into the next round here. And I don't see anybody able to stop them. I mean, they've played arguably 2 of the easier matchups so far, but not been very close. And I cannot wait to see them go up against Misfits and 1-2-3 and United, right. And basically all of them. I just cannot get enough of Gamers Origins right now. They're a lot of fun to watch, and they're just doing something nobody else is doing, and anybody that tries to mimic them can't do it as well. So it's been a really fun ride so far through 2 weeks.
Right. So they've got 2 of the check marks, right? They have the maybe not innovation, because it's kind of, maybe it is the innovation of Doomfist and being able to run Doomfist so well. And even as other teams are getting better, they're still, at least for a couple of weeks until you max out Doomfist, you're still a week or 2 ahead of the Doomfist play. So there's a check mark. The old
NIP?
NIP, exactly. Read my mind. The old NIP check mark of we just do the best thing or the different, very good thing better than you do. Got that check mark. The other check mark is that even though you said, you alluded to it, they've played 2 of their arguably easier matchups. A lot of arguably good teams don't have that check mark of being able to win the games they are supposed to win. If they're playing these matches against these weaker teams and they're close, okay, they're not even really in the conversation right now. But if you're winning the matches that you're supposed to win and you're winning them handily, it sets you up in a good position to take on the Misfits and the Uniteds of the world.
Yeah, they're winning them the way they should, just in decisive fashion. So it's been eye-opening to say the least, and like I said, it'll be really, really exciting moving forward. I don't know for sure who they play next week, but nonetheless, I can't wait to see it. Moving on to the NA side of things, is because we do have patch notes and we got to get the interview in, so we kind of got to move a little quick here. We're still adapting to the fact that A. Smith's like a legend and just schedules things like crazy, and we always have interviews. So sorry about the long episodes. Yeah, they will shorten up. We might have some new formatting stuff going on as the league kicks off too, so we'll keep you updated on that. But things are going crazy over here in a good way, and we're adapting as best we can. But moving on to the NA side of things, Envision goes up against Immortals in what I think everybody expected to be, all right, a gut check time. Like Envision, congratulations on beating Rogue. They clearly looked like they were falling off a little bit in World Cup, and we weren't sure why, but not so, as they go against the Season 1 champions, Immortals, and win 3-1. And they did it with a new shot caller this week than last week, because Christopher was not with the team. They were playing with Numlocked this week, and this was a really, really phenomenal match to watch. Make sure you guys check it out. Numlocked in for Christopher, like I said, so I don't even know who's shot calling right now, but if none of them were doing it with Christopher and he was new, I have to assume it's Numlocked. And he looked really impressive. He fit in very, very well with their roster, and those guys must just be super, super adaptable, right? Because if they're just playing with different shot callers every week, they're beating these teams that they're huge underdogs against. I mean, let's be honest. Even after defeating Rogue last week, they were still thought of as an underdog in my eyes and in everybody else's eyes going into this match. So a really, really good job in this event here. And looking at just some of the other reasons, I wrote down why. They seemed really, really uncomfortable with the new meta. Immortals did. I mean, probably just in comparison, right, to Envision, who definitely was able to put Jaru on Doomfist. And honestly, Agilities was the second best Doomfist in this match when they tried it. So, and ironically enough, something I never thought I'd say, Grim Reality was probably the second best McCree in this game as well. McGravy really stepped up and continued the work he did last week. Really, really strong DPS player. Overwatch League teams have to be paying attention to him now if they weren't before, as he is just continuing to kind of stand on his head a little bit. And yeah, outplayed Grim Realities, I think, hands down across all 4 maps, with a couple exceptions. All these guys are really, really good. They all had big plays. I think it was Agilities. I don't know. I'm second guessing myself because somebody in chat said it was Grim, but there was just a huge Dragon Blade. I mean, astronomically, it was in 2 seconds. Like, there was a kill. He pulled out the blade. He dashed once and 5 people dropped. It was one of the craziest plays I've ever seen. Make sure you check that out as well. I feel like it was Agilities. I don't know, but it was. It could have been. I
remember seeing that Twitch actually made a clip of that and tweeted it out and said, "Is that a pro Genji?" Okay. I don't remember who it was though.
It would have had to have been Agilities, because it was because Grim's their hit scan guy. So okay. But anyways, moving forward, I just thought the DPS players got outclassed a little bit in this match, and so big props to Envision there. Obviously, Immortals has kind of brought in those 3 Korean players to solidify their roster, and you have to wonder how well it's working if they're not able to pull out matches like this, because I think they were able to, they should have been able to win this one, given their record and their track record recently. But a new meta will always, cause problems for team, have setbacks, and surge teams ahead, as we're seeing on both EU and NA side.
Right, and I mean, think about it from your perspective, Death, having played with different teams, how much of a wrench would it throw into your game plan right now if half of your team was not a native English speaker?
So much of comms really does break down to just calling out the name of the hero, right? And you learn specific call outs. So I think it would be brutal for like a week and a half, right?
Sure.
But I really do think with somebody there to translate and make sure that we got the plan in place, I think you could name call outs well enough that everybody could get it under control pretty quickly. But it's not so much about the language barrier, right? I mean, that's in game, right? That's only in game. So the language barrier extends outside to conversations you have as a team, things like that. And that's where it's going to definitely hurt you more. So I think it might slow long-term progress more than it affects short-term short-term issues,
Sure.
once you have like that week or two to kind of get acclimated. But you might get better slower over time as a result of it. I don't really know, as I've never had that particular challenge thrown at me. But I don't want to give the wrong impression here about this match. It was not all about Doomfist. That's kind of what Gamers Origins has been. They've been all about Doomfist. That really wasn't this either. We saw, there was Volskaya didn't really involve Doomfist from my memory, at least when Envision was attacking. It was dive versus dive. It was Sombra versus Sombra, and it was just a really well fought match there as well. And a 3-1 map win is fairly decisive, especially when you're an underdog, right? Like you'd expect to see the 3-2 if they're going to win, but then 3-1 to take it decisively and decidedly like that, off the back of two. If you like those long overtime pushes at the end of a map on the second way through, definitely watch the close of that one, because that's how that one ended. It was a lot of fun.
Nice.
Did a really good job. All in general, just seemed very on the same page. I was really impressed changing shot callers, the way they were able to bait alts, call retreats and then re-engage the moment the Zen Transcendence is down. They just did a really good job capitalizing on those moments and those opportunities. Now the rest of the NA scene, Team Envy gets a 3-1 win over FaZe Clan. I think it's not a surprise that they won, but I'm a little surprised there was a map taken here, right? I mean, FaZe is streaky, so clearly they weren't, they weren't on the downslide here. They were playing pretty well, but Envy did not complete the steamroll here, and they're actually still tied up with Kungarna at the top of the group, 1 and 2, 2-0. Speaking of which, Kungarna was able to take down FNRG FE, rip my boy Cool Matt, who we will be talking to next week. So if you're a big Cool Matt fan like me, make sure you tune in next week. We'll be airing an interview with him. We don't go into the specifics of this match because of the kind of 1 week time delay that was baked into this interview. So, hopefully they get things turned around, as they are currently 0 and 2, and on the outside looking in here, along with Immortals. So there's a tough road here in the NA side of things to get back in and
it's
qualify.
It's a pretty stacked bracket, I'm not gonna lie.
It really is, when you take the teams that were perceived weaker at the beginning, which in my mind was Renegades, Immortal, or Envision, not Immortals, and probably Kungarna towards the bottom. I mean, not that they were underdogs or a weak team, but just when you're stacking them up against the Rogues and the Enviouses, and FNRGFE was so strong in the last Contenders, it was hard not to pencil them up near the top, or at least in that top 4. Right. Everything's just been kind of turned on its head right now. And we'll see. It'll be interesting. It very well might just stabilize and go back to exactly what we thought, but everything I've seen from Envision says this team is for real, and I expect them to stick around.
Right. I mean, I think if you Vegas odds it at the beginning, or if you just made your prediction at the beginning, you maybe got 1 place right. Not you specifically. But
it's so fun to watch the tournament too, because they talk about just how bad their predictions are. Like it's the end of week 2 and they're like, I'm at 500. I've got half of them right so far. Like that's it.
Yeah, I would be surprised if you got half right, because I'm pretty sure everyone picks Envious in first. Sure. I don't know how many people would be crazy enough to put Kungarna in second place after 2 weeks.
Not with Immortals and Rogue sitting there. Just looking at it from the beginning, it'd be hard pressed to put them there for sure.
Exactly. And then Envision, I'd be surprised if you found people that put them in the top 4.
I didn't put them in the top 7, so what do I know, right? And that's the honest truth. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We talked about it when we're on record. You could prove us wrong even if we tried to pretend like we liked them, so there's no point in that. They've been a huge surprise in the best way. Right. I mean, who doesn't love the underdog like this, right? When they're playing so well, and it's so apparent that they've clearly leveled up since the last time we've seen them. But and again, teams like Kungarna, it's not even so much about that they've been a problem. It's that we've been reintroduced, and the Rogue and the Envious came back into this and just made the bracket so top heavy that it's been really hard to envision some of these tier 2 teams making that breakthrough and doing as well as they have been. But big props to them. Kungarna and Envision and Envious, I cannot wait to see those 3 teams when they play against each other. It's going to be a wild ride whenever we get those matchups.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. I mean, you would think Envision, the first test would be, how do they do against Rogue? Okay, check that one right off. It's going to be, I really want to see the Envision Envious match, because when we talk to Christopher, you'll hear it in, no, wait, you've already heard that. Man, see, I'm losing track of when our interviews are happening.
It's all your fault, A-Smith.
A-Smith doing too much good. No such thing. Please keep doing what you're doing. Christopher talked about how they are confident. They are confident in their ability, and they're feeling good about playing. So even though Christopher's not on the team anymore, they've still got most of the team there. I really want to see Envision versus Envious. Like I want to see, like, does Envision, like, okay, am I expecting Envision to pull off a win? No. However, if they're competitive in it, that will show a lot about Envision.
Even if Envision loses, but they make it go 3-2, they force the extra. Yeah. I will lose even if it's 3-1, I'll be super pumped for them. Like it'll be a great showing. But I don't think Envious is bulletproof either. They're not what they were in the past, but it's just they're so hyped up now, right? Still. Like they're on a pedestal, right? I can't until they lose, until they pull a rogue and lose to Envision. I can't take them off of it. So I just kind of have to leave them there and assume they're still as bulletproof as they looked when they left, because they were when they left. I just don't know that they're that anymore, and we'll have to see. And that's why we've been constantly bringing up how excited we are for when they do come back and join the NA scene. It's for this exact tournament right here, and this moment is like measuring everybody against them, and the upstart versus the reigning champ is really what Envision versus Envy will be. And Kungarna is going to be really upset about that, because they would be the upstart if Envision would just calm down a little bit. But either way, Kungarna measuring up against either one of those teams will also be a whole lot of fun. And Kungarna should still have to play against Rogue. So we'll have to keep an eye out for that as well.
Right. I mean, the difference between Kungarna and Envision right now is that Envision spiked the Rogue matchup. If Kungarna can beat Rogue, then we're in the same boat. But, Kungarna playing two of the weaker matches, at least in terms of where the rankings are now. Envision has beat a top 4 team right now. Kungarna has not yet. So and again, Kungarna has not really ever been bad in recent tournament history, but we've never really had the conversation of like, okay, they are an Envious level team, they're a Rogue level team. Heck, we've never even really said they're an Immortals level team. Maybe close, but at least during that reign where like basically Rogue and Envy were on NA vacation, we never had that conversation with like, oh, they're going to probably beat Immortals. That used to be Immortals versus Renegades until Renegades like fell off the face of the planet and never won a match again.
Yeah, and I'll cop to it. Kungarna gets credit. They were part of Upset Weekend. Like I had them losing to FNRGFE going into that matchup, and they were able to pull out the 3-1 win. But he just doesn't have the sticker shock. It doesn't have the value, right? It's not. They're not coming from as far down, right? They're coming from exactly middle to look like they belong in the top. And I think that kind of made them like a trendy sleeper pick, to really just go full fantasy football, since that's all my brain can process right now, anyways. They would be the trendy sleeper pick that you'd pick going into a tournament to surprise and do well. But Envision was impossible to predict. In fact, I was complaining about their presence in this tournament 3 weeks ago. Sure. So it's just by far the most fun to watch. So it's unfortunate for Kungarna in a time when they want to shine and they want to stand out and make a name for themselves. They're just being overshadowed by the Envision roster below them. But nonetheless, there's nobody ignoring them either, right? Like the OWL people will do their homework and look beyond what the headlines are. The biggest sticker value. They will watch every second of every match. And yeah, we heard from you'll hear from it next week. These teams are talking to players too. So keep an eye out for the Cool Matt interview, because there's a lot of good information there.
Right, and the last thing I'll say about that is, Kungarna beats Envious or Rogue, they're the new thing. They're the new hotness. If the matchups would have been reversed for Envision and Kungarna, we'd be talking about Kungarna right now if they beat Rogue over Envision. But it's just the way it is right now. We're only 2 weeks in, so we've still got time. And I don't know if you mentioned the last match or not, so I'll just reiterate it again. Rogue beat Renegades 3-1. No surprise there.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. Did I do that one? I don't know, but we did now. We did now.
It is there. But we still have a lot to go in the rest of this episode with the interview as well. Any last second wrap-ups on Contenders for this week, Death?
No, I was surprised though. I didn't think Rogue looked quite like their old selves. So I don't know that a 3-1 win over Renegades brings them out of the water yet. I'm still very much so keeping an eye on them, and I think them against Kungarna, since we've already seen them against Envision, I think might be the best indicator going forward. Because I wouldn't be surprised if they lost to Envious, and I wouldn't be surprised if Envious lost to Rogue. But at the same time, you know what I mean? And like almost any score too, right? Because they're so good. If somebody gets on a hot streak or something like that, it wouldn't shock me either way, and I wouldn't panic about either team as that result. But I think if Rogue goes out and loses to Envision and Kungarna, I might be hitting a panic button.
Yeah, which is sad because I'm right now wearing my Rogue jersey, but I don't want to have to get rid of that one.
Sorry, you need a Patriots jersey anyway.
I 100% will get my Cool Matt 69, and I'll get it signed by Tom Brady. That'll be the best.
Set it on fire,
and then I'll give it to you for Christmas.
But well, then it won't be in your apartment when I set it on fire, so that'll be good.
Let's move right along and
let's break it.
Bringing it down. We do have some new stuff, a little bit of spicy stuff. First thing we'll say is that the Diva changes that we definitely 100% talked about last week. I'm like, yeah, we definitely did. They're live in PTR, so go play them. Get me some Diva rockets and all that good stuff. They're in.
Go find out what your defense matrix can't do anymore.
Right. But we also got a brand new curveball here, and that was Mercy rework. Did not think we were going to be getting this. Mercy, of course, being one of the High Noon Podcast original Fantastic Four way back in the day, has seen pretty much every amount of play you can, from maximum to minimum and everything in between just about. And now we're getting almost a complete and utter rework. So
it feels that way. It's not quite like it's moving one ability and adding another one, but we're about to get very specific, so we won't go too.
So I'm going to run through the whole rigmarole right now and go over the developer comments, and then we'll talk about our thoughts on them. So Resurrect, which was formerly Mercy's ultimate ability, the ability now targets a single player instead of every player within a radius. The radius is reduced to 5 meters. Ability cooldown is now 30 seconds. Mercy is no longer granted invulnerability while Resurrect is active. Hello! But moving on, we have Mercy has a new ultimate called Valkyrie. Valkyrie unleashes the full power of Mercy's Valkyrie suit, enhancing her weapons and abilities for 20 seconds. And by that, they mean her staff. The healing and damage boost now affect all allies near the targeted teammate. The staff's effective range has also been extended.
Pronounce that word. Don't just call it the staff. Pronounce that word.
Caduceus?
Caduceus.
Is that what it actually is?
I'm pretty sure.
Caduceus staff. And then the Caduceus blaster has infinite ammo while simultaneously increasing damage and fire rate. So infinite ammo, more damage, faster shooting. Her Guardian Angel is increased range and movement speed. Resurrect cooldown is instantly reset when Valkyrie is activated and reduced to 10 seconds after the initial cast. Mercy gains the ability to fly freely and at increased movement speed. We'll post the link to the developer update where Jeff Kaplan talks about this. It's not like Pharah Boost. It's not a Winston jump. It's not a Diva thruster. Actually, it's like a Diva thruster that doesn't turn off.
Think of your swimming through air.
Yeah.
At more than full speed.
Think of when you play a custom game and you turn all the cooldowns on 0 and you have a Winston or a Genji. It's like that, except it's better than that. You just fly around and your speed's increased. And then her regeneration passive no longer interrupted when Mercy takes damage. All this is while the Valkyrie abilities on. The comment from the developer is that while resurrecting downed allies is a core part of Mercy's gameplay, the way her ultimate functioned was causing a number of problems. It was frustrating to play against, and it incentivized Mercies to hide away from important battles instead of taking part in them. This version turns Resurrect into a single target ability. It's still an important part of Mercy's kit, but it plays much better for both Mercy players and her enemies. Valkyrie, her new ability, gives her the opportunity to make a big game-making plays and opens a number of new options for her. Wow. That is all I have to say to that.
Yeah.
It's big.
That's my role, so I'm super excited because I'm gonna go from I really don't like playing Mercy, guys. Like, can we not?
Yeah.
To sign me up. Where's my Pharaoh? Like, let's go. Let's do this.
Yes.
It's insane, and there's footage out there. I'm not talking about. I haven't actually played it yet, right? Because I'm so confident this won't hit live in its current form, with its current numbers, that we're not focusing on learning it yet. Once they iterate on it and scale it back a little bit, I think then we'll move our scrims over to the PTR. Everybody generally seemed open to it when I recommended it, but. I mean, let's start at the top of the list here. Obviously, Resurrected isn't gone, but it's not the alt anymore. So what did you lose? You lost the ability to resurrect 5 people at one time.
Yeah.
4, 3, 2 people all at one time. Like, you can't do that anymore, right?
Right.
You can only hit 1 anyways. But because we focus on the comp scene, 5-man reses have been dead to us for a long time.
Yeah.
They're not something that happens. Everything has been tempo-based.
Tempo res.
As far as resing. So you want 1, maybe 2 people if you can get it, great. Otherwise, your Pharah alts, and then she dies because she's super vulnerable, of course. So you just hit the Q button right away, bring her back, and then you've got the alt, you killed 1 or 2 people, and then now your team's back at full strength. And that's how the Mercy res has been winning fights for you. Now, what we have now is... the upshot at the 5-man res is gone. Now, there was a huge example of a game-winning, fight-winning 5-man res this weekend, and people pointed it to, this is why they shouldn't make that change. I don't think that's necessarily true. Trust me, guys, Mercy is going to be able to create some pretty hyped moments with Valkyrie anyways after the fact. So we don't have to worry so much about the res being what does it. But... now what we have here is the ability now targets a single player, okay? And you have to be within 5 meters of them. So you basically have to be standing on them, essentially, is the way I view 5 meters. The ability cooldown is 30 seconds. All right, so now if I had to guess, I would say it took me about 90 seconds to build up my ultimate on Mercy. I mean, in an ideal world with a tank constantly taking damage but never dying, you can get there faster. But 90 seconds is about right because there's going to be downtime in between fights, stuff like that, that's going to make it delay. So with me usually only getting 1 or maybe 2 people, this is almost like saying 300% increased uptime on Resurrect.
Right.
So it is potentially really, really strong. And I haven't noticed a big downside to this yet when I've watched it because, like we said, part of the Valkyrie ability is you instantly reset it, right? So this is the sequence and how it works out. You fly to somebody, you res them, you ultimate, you fly to the next person, you res them, you pull out your pistol, you free fly across the map and murder everybody. And that sounds like an exaggeration, but right now, it's not. That's what the top end Mercy, that's what happens when you put somebody that can aim on Mercy and you just shoot a nano boost at them.
Oh,
that's
God,
obviously how they're testing it.
The
But,
Taimu Mercy, oh God.
We've seen his plays before.
Yeah.
Now he flies freely and has no ammo reset, right? So he never has to reload. He does way more damage and he attacks crazy fast. It's pop, pop. It takes like 3 or 4 shots with maybe 1 headshot in there and they're dead.
Oh, God.
It's crazy. And that's with the nano boost. That's because those are the highlights you're seeing right now. So, but otherwise it's still really, really powerful. It's really, really strong. And, all the little bonus stuff here, right? We haven't even gotten down to the nitty gritty of it. This is just people being greedy and trying to make stupid plays. And so they're getting greedy and they're making these stupid plays for highlights. But think of the repercussions of, like, if you're in a death ball strategy now and you're playing Mercy and you hit Valkyrie and you're holding right click on your team, they nerfed Discord Orb because giving 50% damage boost to your entire team was way too strong.
Yeah.
And that was only on 1 target. This is, I don't care where your shots go. You just statically deal 50% increased damage.
Yeah.
And if they're all grouped up, that's the entire team. That's nutty. Also, all the healing power that she has can also just get your entire team at once.
Right.
So she'll out AoE heal Lucio. She'll be one of the faster moving characters in the game for that 20 seconds. But given flight and given the fact that Guardian Angel zips you. I mean, just zips you, and you go super far, and you go super fast, and you're just gone.
Yeah.
So combining that with flight and with all the increased damage, all the extra abilities you get. Oh, and by the way, you know, you're just constantly gaining like a static HP that is really, really, you know, hard to damage through. So her regeneration is no joke. It's very important to constantly get that one bullet into Mercy when she's running away from you, because she'll heal up quickly, and now you can't stop it. So it's a really crazy change coming in. And I'm really, really excited about it. I think once they calm things down and it becomes right to right-click your team and give the damage boost to as many people as possible, it'll be about right. I don't think I mean, if there's ever a time to make it so that it's beneficial to pull out the gun, it's using an ultimate ability like that. So I get it. And I hope they keep a decent amount of firepower behind it. Like if I'm getting dove by a Genji and like he's also on my soldier and my soldier dies, like I would love that to just, you know, res him, hit my ult, res somebody else, you know, dash over there, res somebody else, dash back and kill the Genji. Like that's great. I don't need to be killing 6 people when I'm doing it, and I don't need to be getting nano boosted because it's that ridiculous. But this is a really, really hero defining switch, right? And for one of the most popular heroes in the game, or to hear Jeff say it, the hands down most popular hero in the game. So I'm really, really looking forward to getting my hands on this change. It is live on PTR now, so you can go ahead and check that out. And there is one more small change I'm going to mention here, and it's about Reinhardt, and it's a tiny quality of life thing. But our boy Christopher had to have been super, super pumped when he read it because he's a shot calling main tank. So barrier field on Reinhardt now, holding the primary button. So when you're right clicking to keep your shield up, okay, you can hold left click and then rotate your camera and look around you. So a really positive change because I think that, you know, there are shot calling Reinhardts out there. Christopher is one of them. And now they have way more just knowledge and information. They can be way more active on comms. They're a lot less restricted and punished for using their primary ability. So I think that's just an overall really, really strong change. But we can pretty much skip over that one because that one's a strong change because it doesn't impact the power level of the hero at all, but
it's just quality of life.
Makes it better. But how do you feel about Mercy, Blevins?
I am excited. I'm really excited. I think she's going to be a really fun character to play, even at my pleb levels. I think it's possible, like you mentioned, that she might actually start seeing she might have enough of an impact on a not all at once, and if you kill her at the right time, she's very bad for you scale, so that she might actually see some pro play potentially. I think at current state she does, but like Jeff mentioned in the video, they're trying a number of different iterations. I think they probably launched the most powerful one just to see what it would do. You might as well, right? And allow people to make some awesome videos in the meantime. I'm a huge proponent of the tempo res. Just from a strategy standpoint, it's what we've seen at high level. I just love, I mean, once you understand the concept of tempo and you're at a level, you're playing against a team that's similarly matched, once you get that tempo and can keep that tempo up, it's extremely powerful in Overwatch as well as many other games. So I'm always in favor of the tempo res. This is just the built-in tempo res. It also, like their stated goal, Blizzard's stated goal of, we don't want Mercies to have to be incentivized to go hide when you have your ult. Like, that's a thing I have told people to do and have heard be said. It's like, hey, dude, you have res. You healing me or someone else is not worth it. We need you to hide and then res us when that happens. That's not fun for them. It's not fun for you when they mess it up. It's also not fun for the team that spends 3 ults wiping your team on second point of Anubis, and then they just res it all and it's all gone. And granted, these things...
It'll be really nice not to tell my Winston to purposefully go get himself killed on the point anymore. Like it's really awkward.
Yeah, it just created a lot of awkwardness and unfun situations on both sides of the playing field. So I think this is, I agree with you. It probably needs to be tweaked, but in terms of macro changes, I think they're great.
Yeah, I love the feel of it. Like, I want her to be powerful. I want her to be able to be aggressive if she wants to. Like, if your team's diving and I'm on Mercy, I want to be able to pop Valkyrie and join the fight and be a contributor. But I don't think I should be able to solo a 1v6. I think that might be a little too much. So
Right.
I expect them to bring it back some, but hopefully keep it, relatively intact. I want it to feel the same and still feel very powerful. I just don't want it to, work to that grand effect quite so often.
Right. I think if they can potentially lower her damage, which I don't necessarily want to do, but I also don't want her to 1v6, but I also don't want her to be like caught in a bad spot and not be able to ult away from most anything. Like, she doesn't need to be able to ult away because she murdered the team. I just want her to be able to escape when she uses her ult. Like, you should be able to use your ult to escape pretty much anything.
Yeah.
But it'll definitely be interesting. I think it's a strong enough and like diverse enough thing that it can potentially create some more strategies beyond just Fair Mercy. I think potentially. It'll be interesting to see that, but I think that's going to be just about it for the normal part of the episode. Any last minute stuff before we head over to the Jake interview, Death?
Just one question for you, my man.
Let's hear it.
When do we start the beard bet this season? Because season 5 is over now. It ended while we've been talking, so it is officially ended. And that means you're on placement watch again already. And I feel like you just finished that like a week ago. So how's it going to go?
Let me know when we'll decide once season 6. Once I can physically play the matches, we'll set out a time.
All right, so we'll talk about it next episode.
That's when it's starting. That soon.
Oh, it'll be started in 3 days. It starts on like the 1st.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about it offline, and then we'll announce an official beard bet on next episode. But that's going to be it for this episode. We're going to pass it over to me and Death and Jake from the team captain for Team USA Overwatch. So we're going to pass it over to them, and we will see you guys on the other side. Thanks, John. Dumbest fake opening ever, but we are super excited here today. We've got a really awesome interview with the Team USA Overwatch captain, Jake. What's up, man?
Hey, glad to be here, man.
Really super. Whoa.
I was just going to say, sorry we don't have like, all these cool American outfits and flags that we can be waving. I'm sure you're very used to that after last weekend.
The lack of support has been noted.
Yeah. It's okay. There's an entire American flag underneath my beard somewhere, I swear.
Nice.
I'm slowly like knitting it into an American flag. So, but enough. We're probably gonna have enough time for plenty of silly stories and tangents. So let's get right into it. So Jake, we like to start off these interviews in the same way. Always like to start off with what is your gaming origin story? Like, how did you get into gaming or esports? And just to, I don't want to put any pressure on you, but it is kind of a contest. We've got some pretty awesome stories, but no pressure, but let's hear it.
Well, I only have my own, so it'll have to do. So, I mean, I grew up playing console games with my brother on all the different PlayStation systems. I think my first system was the original PlayStation. Played console games until about 13 or 14 when I started playing Team Fortress 2 on my MacBook Pro, which was like my school computer at the time. Kept playing TF2 and started playing it to the point where I just basically was playing nothing else. Realized that PC gaming was exactly where I wanted to be, and never really looked back, I guess. As far as esports is concerned, I started competing pretty quickly within my first year of playing TF2. I was playing competitively in 9 vs 9, and then another 6 months later, I was in the more serious format, which is 6v6, and I was climbing the leagues. Spent, I think, 2 seasons, or actually my first season of 6 vs 6 was in intermediate, it was in ESEIM, and then I went back to open for my second season, and then just straight climbed to invite. I went intermediate, main, invite over the next few seasons. So that was sort of my rise to esports prominence in TF2, but I was never really like a notable player in TF2. I mean, I played an invite, but I wasn't the best of the best, or even potentially competing for a position like that. So I was definitely like a tier 2 player within the professional division or within the invite division. But I would say TF2 really showed me that I had what it takes to, be a professional if I wanted to be. I knew that because I had learned so quickly and like caught up to much more talented players so quickly that I knew I felt like I could do it again. So when Overwatch came around and I heard about Overwatch and I saw the similarities to TF2, but also some of the similarities to Dota and MOBAs that I also played a lot just casually. I thought it would be the perfect game for me, and then learning about all the esports possibilities in it was super super exciting for me. So basically, as soon as the game released, I just started playing it and haven't looked back since.
That's awesome.
It was a really natural progression for TF2 players. Just was kind of very, very obvious. From the first video that came out, you have Torbjorn, and you're just like, that's engineer. Like everybody just knew right away that it was the natural progression of that genre. So.
And while I don't know if you quite beat our first guest who was playing Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 tournaments against a DJ in Sweden, it's still a very good story of how you can start. Well, I don't know if it's a true story, but that is a real story that was told to us. You do have a very compelling story about how you can be a filthy console pleb and then eventually ascend to the professional tiers.
Ascend to the chosen gaming platform.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, once you try PC gaming, you're not going back. You're not going back.
No. So that's awesome. So we kind of have a progression of you being a filthy console pleb, then moving on to your MacBook Pro, and then actually moving on to real systems and ascending. So how did you get formed up with your current team for Overwatch?
So this is the first team. I mean, not exactly the first team I was on in Overwatch. I was like right when the game had come out, I had been out for like a season about. Some other friends from TF2 were making teams, and there were a few people who were trying to put together rosters, and I was playing a little bit with a few different groups. But I met Trade, Vol, and Super at first, and then they introduced me to Rob, and later we picked up Avast, who are all ex Invite TF2 players. I think the only people who didn't play in Invite were Super and Rob 420, and they were pretty young at the time, or at that point when they would have been competing in Invite in TF2, so can't hold it against them. So I just knew that they were all really, really talented players from TF2, and that they all had really parlayed their skills into Overwatch. We were all top 500 players, all like really competitive on the ranked ladder back in like season 1, season 2. So we all knew that we had the chops, and we decided to make a team. Pretty quickly, I would say, we started being successful, or maybe punching above our weight class for an unsponsored team. We knew we were a lot better than a lot of the sponsored teams out there, than a lot of the more established teams. So for us, it was just a matter of time. We just had to know if we kept showing our skill and kept beating these quote-unquote better teams, that eventually one of their sponsors is going to realize that we're a better bet for sponsorship. From there, we got picked up by Hammers Esports.
Go Hammers.
And then bought out by Luminosity Gaming, where we still play today.
That's awesome. So, I think this was a patron question, right? Death, about the LG Loyal versus LG. No, that was just a question from
that was me. Yeah, that was me. I want to know that one.
Oh, so when you guys moved over to LG, did you get to choose, like, what was it like? Okay, you guys are evil and the other team is loyal, or was there did you have any sort of input on that? How did that go?
Yeah, I mean, the other team that was existing with LG at the time was like, they had been there for some time, and they were already Luminosity Gaming. So whatever we were going to come on as was going to be like whatever, another brand, a second brand. But they weren't going to, I mean, they wouldn't change. It's sort of weird to change both of them, right? So Luminosity Gaming becoming Luminosity Gaming Loyal is like, it's not really, it sort of sounds like a slogan more so than like a rebrand. So the intent was to let that team keep their original branding, but then also have like sort of a differentiated but nonetheless LG branding for us as a team. So for us, I mean, I don't think we cared too much. There were like a few options, I guess, as far as LG Evil. I think people were throwing around a few different LGs, a few different colors, different possibilities. But the org liked this one the most, and we agreed we liked it as well. I don't think it really affected anything in terms of like changing how we play or how we perceived of ourselves or anything. But mostly it was just like a fun way to have a differentiated brand from the other roster.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting when it happened. It was like, because it kind of felt like, I don't know, somebody that in my past watched pro wrestling, like it felt like you guys might have wanted to become like the heel a little bit, you know what I mean? And I don't know, I really liked it from that perspective. I thought it was fun, and it was way more interesting than just going by like red and blue. Nothing against the orgs that use red and blue teams for, you know, for their names and things like that. But I just thought it was a much more innovative, it was a cooler way. It gave you guys a bit of an identity right out of the gate, which I liked.
It would have been funny if they just, without even like factoring in the skills of the teams, if they would have just done JV and varsity just to like make one team feel bad.
But moving on here, though, I was curious with this roster. You know, you said it's really kind of the first team that you've been with, and you've been with them for a long time. So I'm wondering how many coaches you guys have worked with through your time with the roster.
We've had a few staff members, a couple that have come and gone, but not like a tremendous amount. We don't have a huge turnover. But I would say the only notable like coaching position we had, where someone who like was really like knowledgeable about the game and sort of, you know, influencing us strategically, has been Minnie. Minnie, who was originally the tank player for Tempo Storm a while back. Minnie, he's definitely been really helpful for us in terms of like adapting to the dive meta. I think as the meta changed and became more and more dive centric, it was really tough for us to adapt as a team. Tough for us to like play that new meta. So I think that he helped a lot in terms of helping us understand exactly what each of our roles were on a given character in a given situation, and sort of, you know, refining that balance of how to play something like dive, which is a really complex composition to play, especially if you're running the soldier variant, which we like to do early on in the patch.
And you know, I know you said you've only got Minnie to draw on here, but are there any particular qualities or, you know, practices or things that he's done with you guys that you feel make him an effective coach?
I mean, I would say the number one thing is like, it's sort of, you know, it seems obvious, but like a lot of coaches don't have it, is just like game knowledge and understanding. You know, it's pretty, like, there's a lot of coaches, I would say, that are kind of unqualified to be in the position they're in the sense that their interpretation of how to play the game is either just wrong, or they're not, or they just sort of picked it up from someone else and they don't have like a good ability to understand and learn, which will make it a problem when, you know, there's new patches that they have to innovate on. So I would say the number one thing is like sort of that knowledge. Beyond that, a huge part of being a coach is, you know, managing, you know, the morale and the emotional state of the team. It's also a very difficult job. You have to sort of make sure that everyone is, you know, staying focused, but also having fun, you know, enjoying themselves, but also doing well. So I think it's sort of being a great coach is all about balancing those opposites and sort of finding a good middle ground for your team. You know, getting your team to peak for a tournament is a very difficult thing, and like the sort of structural practice and scrim stuff that you have to do to get that is pretty a small gap to shoot for sure. I'd say one thing though is I definitely can also compare him to Kyle or Kai Sauter. Kyle has been really, really great as well, especially at that the latter options, like the emotional balancing of the team and that you know, getting us to peak for an event in terms of how we schedule practice and how we think about practice. So that, I mean, definitely it's being a coach is all about finding those middle grounds, you know, between you can't try too hard all the time or the team burns out and dies, but you can't also just be like messing around all the time where the team just isn't good and then it'll also probably die. So, you know, a coach is like your life support staff.
Right. All right. Well, as somebody that's aspiring to do some coaching in the game, I definitely appreciate that feedback. Hopefully other people, you know, find it useful as well. And thank you for affirming my choice to really focus on playing the game at the highest level I possibly can for as long as I possibly can before I make that jump, because it, you know, tells me I'm at least on the right track. Anyways. But yeah, let's move on to talk a little bit more about the World Cup, John. You can pick that up.
Yeah. So the one thing, you know, that we were talking about way back when they announced the format for this next World Cup is kind of the process and the tryout process that they were using for you guys. So I know you've probably talked about this 1,000 times, but just like a brief overview of what the tryout process was for you. You know, how many tryouts there were, who you were playing against, etc.
The tryout process was really like it was like really, really wide at first, right? The biggest focus in the beginning was just like trying to get as many of these like, you know, talented United States players in the same games as possible. So we started with like a 6-on-6 format, and that's what we did for a long time, of cycling different players in, but then also, you know, swapping different players back and forth. So it was the first like week of tryouts was all 12-mans, no external like teams, no external pro teams or anything. So that was like you know, the initial formatting, and so we were scrimming against ourselves. And then beyond that, it was like each day, or maybe, you know, sometimes even quicker than a night or something between scrim blocks, they would cycle in new players and take old players out, and then just sort of keep iterating on that you know, group of 12. At the end of the week, or at the end of the trial period, once they felt like they had a, you know, good showing from everyone, or at least the 12 that they were really considering at that point, then they selected sort of the optimal team of 6 that the committee felt would really, you know, both have enough individual talent and also be able to, you know, gel and create a successful team together.
Yeah, and that kind of leads on. I mean, you guys were like super on point for the qualifier for basically an all-star team, which we've seen kind of not work in the past, where there's been teams where on paper, you know, there's a lot of talent here. You know, NRG kind of comes to mind at points, as well as some other teams that just did not work. You know, what did you guys kind of do to fight against the, you know, you guys aren't all playing on the same team, you know, professionally, but you guys kind of looked like a really cohesive team for the qualifier?
I mean, for us, the biggest thing was, you know, our practice. We tried to make our practice basically as similar to a professional environment as was reasonably possible. In the beginning, for like, I think the first few weeks of practice after we already had the roster, we were only we were doing like 2 hours a night, I would say, of scrims, 5 days a week. It was just, we were, you know, just doing the 10 to 12 blocks. A lot of scrims versus like other national teams like Canada, but also finding, you know, other professional teams as well, or tier 1, tier 2 NA teams. So we wanted to sort of like make it that professional environment from day one. You know, we weren't going to like pug scrim other pug teams. We actually preferred to scrim professional teams as opposed to national teams. So, you know, from that point, and then, you know, getting closer to the qualifier, we upped it to 16 hours a week. So to get even more of that, you know, getting used to playing for like a long time, 4 hours in a row with one another, you know, building cohesion, playing together outside in other games. I think from our whole practice phase, like the most important thing was cohesion and synergy, seconded by making sure that our like execution was really clean. You know, like that whenever we were always calling correctly, like making sure we had the right information and making the right decision, and then also executing those calls really cleanly. I think it's nice to have an all-star team of people without like really huge egos, because then you can shoot the gap of like, you don't need to micro people because everyone knows how to play their role and do their job. But at the same time, if, you know, you want to say, hey, let's try having let's have, you know, Cool Matt play this kind of role in this situation, or that kind of role in this situation, we know that we can just like tell him to do that, and he will. Like, that he's a very good player. He's going to adapt and, you know, be exactly what the team needs him to be. So, and I think that was the case for really every player on the roster was totally willing to change how they played and, you know, try to build these strategies as a unit rather than looking at it as like a one-man show.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we've definitely seen in the past, and, you know, we might even see, maybe not at the World Cup, but at Contenders, where there's a lot of eyes on potentially individual players for Overwatch League. It's really nice to see that you guys can actually come together and work as a team rather than just trying to show off. And I know you just mentioned that it was really great work playing with these guys and working as a team, but is there anyone in particular that you were that you really enjoyed being on the team with? Is there any favorites or anything like that?
I mean, God, it's hard to say. Like, I would say as an IGL, one of my favorite things was how consistent Adam is about, you know, feeding the information about enemy ultimate charge, or just the general macro game. Like, after a fight, he's the one who's giving me like the status report of which ultimates are used, and maybe they're 60% on this, maybe they're, you know, maybe 85 on Dragon Blade or something, like just like all of the ultimate counts to a really, really precise degree, which makes your job as like as an in-game leader or a strat caller infinitely easier because
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to think about the situation or try and understand the scenario. All you do is let someone else tell you that scenario, and then you just craft the play from within it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's much easier to craft the play when all you're thinking about is what's the right play, and you're
Mm-hmm.
not thinking about, you're not wasting those precious seconds considering which ultimates did they use, which ultimates did we use, what's coming up for them, what's coming up for us, what do we have right now? Like those things are really taxing, I would say, as an IGL.
Mm-hmm.
So Adam's ability to, always be giving me that information was really huge, just from like an IGL perspective.
Nice. And one other thing I just wanted to ask about, like actually being there at the qualifier. What was the atmosphere like? What was it like playing in that arena with the casters and the crowd and everything? What was that experience like?
For me, it was pretty awesome because it's my first LAN event, first
Mm-hmm.
offline event. So, and much less playing in front of a crowd, right? I hadn't even played like sitting across from someone. But I think the pressure didn't really bother me,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that the crowd was like so insanely supportive of us was just like amazing, right? Like doing
Mm-hmm.
well and having the crowd cheer for you is just an amazing feeling, and so many people coming out to support is like just incredible as a gamer. To know that the fans support you that much and they believe in you and want you guys to win that bad. Like the turnout was insane. Like for an NA event, it's like unprecedented, I would say, to have
Mm-hmm.
a crowd like this active, this engaged. And of course, it is the World Cup, so maybe it's to be expected more so than like a professional tournament.
Mm-hmm.
But nonetheless, I mean, just the crowd was a total 7-man for us at the group stage. So hopefully they'll be the same at BlizzCon.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll start to see that in the Overwatch League as well.
Yeah, we've been big advocates about how esports is mirroring sports, and part of that is like boo the enemy team, boo the bad guys when they make a play. You don't have to cheer when the other guy makes a play. So hopefully you get to experience a little, maybe not against you, but hopefully you get to experience a little bit of that when you guys go against South Korea in the finals. We'll have to keep an eye on that. But all right, so moving on here, I'm curious too. This is something that I have an opinion on, and we've talked about on the show. But I'm wondering how the players view the level of competition at the World Cup. Is it thought of as more of an All-Star game or a Pro Bowl type game, or is this like the FIFA World Cup and the highest level of competition for Overwatch at the moment?
If it's a binary, I'd definitely go with sort of the All-Star game, Pro Bowl situation, because realistically, none of these teams are going to be competitive with a lunatic high, right? Not even the South Korean team, if you could, clone players. Like the full professional teams are almost certainly going to be like the strongest teams available. So in terms of like the highest level of competition, I mean, I think we're going to have to wait for the Overwatch League to see that. But I do think that it's by no means going to be shabby. Like I think the World Cup there's going to be some, steamrolls even at BlizzCon where one team just absolutely annihilates another, and I think there's probably going to be a few of those. But I think like the top 4 and the top 2 games are going to be really, really interesting to watch. Like I think there's going to be a lot of close series as well. So I think there's going to be some really, really intense competition, and I think that we're going to see some really great Overwatch because especially a lot of the sort of all-star teams as opposed to full rosters. I think a lot of the all-star teams have been proving that that strategy is effective to build an all-star team so long as they can, coordinate and build that synergy that, it doesn't have to be a huge drawback from being a professional team. The biggest thing as a professional team that you have is, much more time to practice and to gel. So naturally your strat book is going to be way, way deeper. You're going to be used to a way, way larger variety of heroes and situations. So your ability to like make precise and accurate, smart plays is a little bit higher. But I would say the all-star, situation also opens up the floor to a little bit more individual prowess and some crazy plays, hopefully coming out from a lot of countries.
All right, and looking here, when we looked at the results at the end of the weekend and we had our final group of 8, we did notice that before this last weekend, it looked like it was going to be South Korea versus Canada, and then now you guys are slated there on the brackets that I've seen. Can you kind of provide any clarity there for our listeners and let them know, is there going to be a redraw or those pairings finalized, or how are things going to go moving forward here?
I've heard that it's going to be randomized, that the original brackets that were like on the site for the World Cup, the Blizzard site, were incorrect, like that they're actually going to be randomized. Because technically everybody who is currently qualified has the same seeding level, because of the structure of the tournament. It's considered, equivalently, we're all equivalently seeded. So I think that the only sensible way to do it is random. Even if, people might argue about the exact seeding of the World Cup, I think it's definitely the case that the U.S. team is a top 4 team. So I think that it would be pretty strange to have us go against South Korea first round. Obviously, no one wants to play South Korea first round. But in general, when you're building a tournament like this, you want to have the strongest team versus the weakest team, so that there's no one placing lower than a team that is maybe worse than them. Like that. So in terms of having the most efficiently run and accurate tournament, in terms of generating accurate results about reflecting actual skill with tournament placement, you're going to want to power protect and create a situation where the best games are happening in these top 4 and grand final scenarios. So I think that I'm not sure if they'll actually do that and make a specific power protect thing, because the equal seeding makes that sort of unreasonable. But I do think that it's also equally unreasonable to sort of give an incentive for people in our group stage to throw games, like if we were guaranteed to play South Korea. So we were told that I believe that it's going to be randomized. There's lots of ways they could do it. I don't know exactly what the plan is. I'm not exactly certain that it's going to be random, but I do know that the brackets that were pretty hyped up because they were originally seen on Reddit, and people were suggesting prior to our group stage that if we win, we have to play South Korea. I've been told that is not correct, and that whatever other mode or other selection method they do use will hopefully be more equitable and not just a function of like A, B, C, D group stages.
Mm-hmm.
So it's safe to say you want to wait until the grand finals to face them. Then you don't want to be that team that knocks them out in the first round and fires the shot heard around the world, literally. For the World Cup.
If you beat South Korea first round, I'd say you're very likely to go win it, because everyone is going to be pretty scared of you. But I would also say that no sane player is going to ask to face one of the top teams in the tournament, if not probably just the top team in the tournament, the favorite to win. No one is going to want to take that matchup the first round when they could just take it the third round, right? Imagine how frustrating you would be if you had a 2-3 series for South Korea in the first round, and then they went on to not drop a map for the rest of the tournament, and you get 8th place, right? Like that, that would be incredibly frustrating, feeling like you were clearly the second best team, but you get 8th place. That's not really what you want in the tournament organization. So hopefully it doesn't happen. I guess we'll see, though.
All right.
Awesome. So let's move on to Overwatch League. Obviously, this is kind of the talk. It's been the talk of the town for almost a year now after they announced it, but we're actually finally starting to get some details on it. So, let's just start it right off. Have you been contacted by any Overwatch League teams or organizations yet to play or potentially try out or anything like that?
This is a little bit of a sticky question.
I know.
Non-specific as you have to be to answer it, and also feel completely free to not answer it.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to go with a no comment on this one. Honestly, there's nothing I could say that would be satisfying for anyone to do.
Well, I know personally, I can spin that in my head as of course he's been contacted. So we'll take that for now.
Dogman gave a pretty similar answer, so not surprised. So let's talk less about concrete details and more about ideal dreams. So is there, and whether it's been announced or in the pipeline or whatever, it can be your wildest dream. If you had to choose a city to play in the world, and if you want to or not, an organization to play for, whether it's an esports organization or like a professional sports team or what have you. What is your dream scenario?
Well, personally, I hail from San Diego, so the San Francisco or one of the LA spots would be amazing. Just being able to sort of stay close to home, and honestly, anywhere in California I would consider home. So those are probably my ideal spots. I'd also really love to see a Seattle spot. Maybe I'd be interested in playing there as well. Seattle's just an amazing city. And I just think it would just make too much sense to have a spot in Seattle. I'm kind of surprised that these teams want to have like a second LA spot or a second whatever, like the cities people are going to double up on. Rather than hitting a city like Seattle or a city like Chicago. That's kind of surprising to me. So Denver, right? There's a lot of options. So I think that
you heard Buffalo mentioned at all while we're talking about other cities?
I haven't heard anything, but I will let you know if I get any
Spread the
updates.
word, man. We've got a fan base here.
Yeah, you can say what you will about the actual city of Buffalo. There are no more diehard dedicated fans, except maybe in like. No, there's just soccer fans. Yeah,
can definitely rival it, but other than that. All right, well, moving on here, I've a question about how we got an announcement that the roster size and the teams for the league will be capped at 12, and I'm wondering how you envision teams utilizing the 7th through the 12th men on their teams. Are they going to be more of rotating subs, or are they going to be developmental spots, a mix of the two? How do you think they're going to use them?
I think that there's a ton of potential to having like all of the above, I guess, in terms of how you want to have your 7th and your extra 6 players, you might think. I think there's some possibility for having like, or very, very likely you're going to have a few players that are sort of rotating subs based on the meta or composition decisions. Like you might have, one dedicated Winston only player, one dedicated Ryan only player, and just swap between them based on what you want to run. Obviously, they would need to be flexible because I'm guessing that you can't swap people out mid-map, and I think that would be so unwieldy that it probably wouldn't be worth doing in the first place. I think there is a very real possibility, though, that in the Overwatch League you'll be able to swap players between maps, and you'll be able to have a preset strategy of, I know that like X player is going to be in the game on this map, and Y player will be in the game on that map, and we'll swap between them, and that's something that you knew before the series even began. So it's not even like a performance thing. It's like you're just setting up your specialists to have the highest possible success. So I think there's a lot of potential for that, especially if you're allowed to rotate your roster between maps. So some of that's going to depend on how the tournament organization is run and how like what's allowed or what isn't allowed. Beyond that, I think there's a ton of potential for, like you guys were saying, developmental spots. People who have a ton of potential maybe, and maybe there's a sense of people are vying for the spot, which can be a positive thing, if it's done in the right way. Where people, the guy on the bench says, I'm so close, like I'm super motivated, I want to improve. And the guy starting says, look, I know that there's someone nipping at my heels, so I want to stay on top. And I think that can be a good dynamic, especially if it's a positive one and not one that's like forcing people to compete in a negative way, wherein they're trying to hinder one another. Because I do think that players can learn a ton from each other on a personal level. So if I'm the starting Genji player, my backup Genji player could easily, assuming it works like that, that's sort of pipe dream, but whatever. Let's imagine. I'm on any slot. Maybe the backup for that slot or the secondary player on that slot can spec me during scrims and say, oh, hey, look, I noticed you made these mistakes, or like here's how I play this, or here's some like interesting tech that you might not know, because the game is so deep that you could be a quote unquote better player and there's still things that you miss. There's still something that the other player might catch, or stylistically they might say, hey, you should consider this. And I think that all those things can build a player and make them a better player. So I think if you can cultivate that developmental spot, not only to be sort of a bench warmer vying for the starting spot, but also as like a kind of assistant coaching staff, a kind of not just developmental in the sense that they're developing themselves, but developmental in the sense that they're trying to build out the roster and they're trying to build the team. And I think that all of this, or rather the success of that kind of sub or that kind of 7th man, is all dependent on the atmosphere of the team. Like if that 7th player or 10th player doesn't feel like they're a part of the team and they're just sort of like the backup and you just get called in when they're needed and then sent out. If the perception is that, I think it'll be very, very hard for this to be successful, because I think that the ability of these 7 through 12 players to contribute to the roster and their desire to do so is predicated on their feeling that that the team is actually more than 6 players. If the perception by fans and by the team and by the org is that there's a team of 6 players and then there's like 6 people who are signed but they're not like the team, then I think it'll be very, very hard to do. But I think some organizations seem to be cultivating that culture of full a team in the most meaningful sense that is composed of more than 6 players.
All right, so probably not going to be like pocket Hanzo mains that you can bring in randomly,
I think some characters there might be potential. Things like Widow, Pharah, like the ultra specialist characters. There's a little bit of room for that. I don't think that you're going to have 6 of those players. You're not going to have like one sub for every defense character. But
Whatever gets Reaver back, because I miss seeing him play Widowmaker, man. He was awesome.
yeah,
There's just gonna be one guy who's like that Doomfist player that they just like call in, and he like walks into he walks into the stadium, the fans go crazy because he plays
swagger.
like two. Yeah, he
Swagger's
plays.
in his...
Man, that's what I want to see. But yeah, so super excited about Overwatch League. Can't wait for that to start and like for even more of our questions to get answered. But speaking of questions getting answered, let's move on right to the listener questions that we had. So the first one was about Season 5 and a lot of people talking publicly about how toxic it is. I know obviously you're probably spending most, if not all of your time in scrims and whatnot, but have you noticed any, extra toxicity or anything extra bad about Season 5 versus the other seasons?
I don't know that Season 5 is like materially worse in any particular way than, Season 4 or even Season 3. I mean, I'm sure it's been probably improved to some extent, but I think what people are seeing now in terms of the toxicity is sort of a boiling over of something that's been annoying people for a really long time. If you play ranked and, you played it, especially at a very high level, if you look at like the win rate of Mercy players above a certain elo range, or like a Mercy main in a game that is 4.3k average, it is a very, very low win rate because that character loses a ton of efficacy at the extremely high level because really, really talented players are not going to miss shots and they're not going to let the Mercy ever get regen.
Mm-hmm.
So the character is just fundamentally weaker in a higher skill game. So there's a ton of dissatisfaction, I would say, especially at the top of the ladder. And some games feel unwinnable. You're like, oh my god, I have a Mercy main, Dan's game. Like that's just sort of a reaction because of a lot of top players understand how Mercy functions in a high elo game and how risky it can be to pick a character like that. In the sense that if you are feeding dash resets or something, then the game's essentially unwinnable for your team. So I think that there's a lot of frustration, and that's just picking on Mercy, right? But I don't want to do that too much. I think that there's a lot of frustration from the one tricking thing, as it applies to all heroes, not just Mercy.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also a ton of frustration in toxicity and trolls and levers, which seem to have been more common recently. I think that's sort of a positive feedback cycle, not in the sense that it's a good thing, but in the sense that it reinforces itself.
Mm-hmm.
That you have like there's more trolls and levers, so you say what, hey, fuck it, I'll leave voice, I'm gonna start messing around, just have a good time, and then you become that troll, and then someone else gets tilted and starts trolling, and
Mm-hmm.
at that point that can ruin a whole number of games, not just one. So I think that they're gonna have to do some important changes to the ranked experience, and I hope they come sooner rather than later. Personally, I don't play ranked anymore. I just play quick play. I'll play ranked like once in a great while, but I'm like decaying on my main because of how little I play ranked. I don't know. It's just not at all a priority for me. I feel like I can get the same amount of aim practice in quick play, potentially more. I don't have to worry about my teammates. I can just focus on practicing from an individualistic perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Because that just sort of stems from my feeling that nothing other than scrims and matches is going to really teach me how to play the game. I think it's sort of a sorry state, though. I think that
Mm-hmm.
that's not the way it could be. It's not the way it should be. I think the ideal situation is one in which you can drop into a ranked game and get something that looks not exactly, but a little bit like an esports competitive environment
Mm-hmm.
where you have a realistic hero composition and your teammates are communicating and working together. Achieving that is pretty difficult, and I don't think Blizzard is doing a bad job of it. I just think that they're going to need to iterate a little faster and make a few pretty significant changes, maybe rock the boat a little bit, because I think the status quo is pretty bad right now. I hope they make some significant changes for Season 6 and going from there.
Well, speaking of making significant changes, we've got a round of patch notes recently, and also we have not really gotten an opportunity to see the last patch and the dropping of Doomfist impact the esports in the professional scene, because he's been locked out of the World Cup matches because some of them started before he was released, so they wanted to keep all the qualifiers that way. It looks like I haven't seen anything to say he's going to be locked out of Contenders this coming weekend. So what, if any, impact do you expect Doomfist to have on the metagame? And also talk a little bit about maybe the upcoming patch changes and what they might do to the meta.
Mm-hmm. I'm really happy with Doomfist. I don't think he's going to be banned for Contenders. I'm pretty sure the only reason that he was restricted was because they wanted all of the group stages to be played on the same patch, like you said, and that also included like the Zarya and the McCree changes. We were not playing with those on the group stage, so you could like blink out of grabs and dash out of grabs at the group stage. So Zarya was a little weaker than she will be post patch, or she I guess is now, you might say. I think Doomfist is in a great spot now. I think his initial release, when the original iteration of Seismic Slam was a little bit insane because it allowed you to like climb to basically any height or any platform on any map you could climb with just like the uppercut Seismic Slam combo. That was a little broken, honestly. His mobility was like kind of out of whack there. I feel like he's in a really, really good spot right now in terms of balance. Like the character is super, super high potential in the sense that you could get a team wipe by yourself, but it's also super, super high risk in the sense that it's incredibly easy to feed on Doomfist. Not only actually dying to like a McCree flashing you or something, but also just your hitbox is very, very big, and the fact that you're constantly gaining shields means that if someone's constantly dealing damage to you, they're going to be building quite a significant amount of ult off you. You might have gone through 600 actual HP by the time that you die, which is a little bit not something people think about too much, but it does affect the ultimate economy, and it does affect the balance of the character. I'm kind of worried right now, honestly, because I see a lot of people on Reddit and elsewhere on the Battle.net forums complaining about Doomfist, suggesting that like the punch is too strong. I think that frustration with one-shot mechanics, Roadhog, really stems from the fact that a lot of people, if you don't play the game at a very high level and you're not trying to anticipate everything prior to it happening, you're sort of focusing on your game rather than trying to predict all of the actions of all of your opponents. It's very easy to see one-shot mechanics as like uncounterable or something that you can't play around or too strong, they just shouldn't exist, right? A lot of people have made that argument. I think that's generally a bad argument, though. I would say that the counterplay to Doomfist and the counterplay to, or what used to be the counterplay to Roadhog before you just, needed to pick any character in the game other than Roadhog to counter Roadhog, is the counterplay always has to exist prior to the one-shot. Of course, once Doomfist has charged a punch and is like, speeding across the map towards you, it's like, yeah, you're in a bad spot. If your back's against the wall, like, you're probably going to die. But the thing is that the counterplay to that punch is not once you realize he's coming at you, it's too late, I can't do anything, this is so frustrating. It's prior to that moment, right? When he charges his punch, you hear that there's a very, very loud audio cue. You shouldn't be listening to music while you play if you want to actually win. Listen to the audio cue. You can hear him around corners if he's setting up on you. A lot of people get frustrated and they get punched around a corner. Well, if you hear him charging up and you back off of it and he uses his punch, then now he's down a very, very crucial ability, and he might have to burn both of his other cooldowns just to survive, which puts you in a great position where you can basically just walk in because the Doomfist has no cooldowns. So I think that a lot of that counterplay has to exist prior to getting one shot. You have to predict where the Doomfist is going to play and be ready to dodge his punch. You can also time it. Like a lot of Doomfists are going to have really predictable timing on the punch. So if you're just running in one direction, you do a quick 180 at the right time, and most people are going to get juked out. Even really, really skilled players can get juked out like that because there is a travel time on the punch. I think like I'm really kind of worried though that a lot of people's feedback on Reddit is that there's no counterplay, there's nothing I can do about this because they don't exactly understand how you do counterplay it, which scares me, right? Because like if they open up more easy counterplay to it, right? Like if the punch just doesn't one shot a 200 HP character, or it requires a absolute maximum charge to do so, it would be much harder to actually use this character effectively, especially at a professional level. So I think that if they tone him down even a little bit, I have a hard time seeing how you nerf Doomfist without making him irrelevant. Right now, competitively, I feel like he's in a great spot. In scrims, he doesn't seem oppressive at all. Not everyone is running Doomfist. He's not a perma run by any stretch of the imagination. A lot of maps you won't see him at all. You'll see him in very different roles and different compositions. The character is really fun, and he's really shaking up the game right now. So I really, really hope that Blizzard doesn't, neuter this character, because I think it has a ton of potential to shake up the dive meta. Although Doomfist is functional as a dive character, he's exceptionally powerful against Winston and against D.Va, which have been two of the most oppressive heroes in this past patch. So I think that nerfing him is buffing those two characters, and I don't think anybody really wants to see Winston or D.Va buffed again.
True enough there. How about the patch coming up? Are we going to see any Orisa, Junkrat, Widow, Roadhog compositions coming up?
I heard the Orisa shield is like huge, so I don't know. It might have some like niche roles, because before you pretty much could only use it to protect Torb, and since Torb wasn't very good, you just weren't going to run Orisa. But maybe the big size will change things, and I think the cooldown's lower too. I don't know exactly all the patch notes. I know the Junkrat patch notes are sick, because Junkrat's a sick character that has deserved a buff for a long time. The double mine is exactly what I've been asking for in terms of increasing utility without making the character incredibly easy to play by just like buffing damage or something. I think it's, he's not going to be any better at just holding left click on chokes, which was what made him so good at lower ranks. But at higher ranks, you're going to have, 2 mines, so that, it's going to be harder to exploit your cooldown. Because prior to this, like your kill ability and your escape ability are the same ability. So when you go for that kill with the landmine, you're incredibly vulnerable for 8 seconds, and everybody knows it. And I think now it's going to be much less the case. You're going to have to count double cooldowns, which is very, very hard to do, especially when they're on an 8-second timer like that. So I think that the new Junkrat is going to be incredibly fun to play. It's going to feel a lot more versatile. And I think the counterplay is going to be richer, and it's going to require more skill. So I'm really happy about those things. The Riptire needed a buff. That was also a crucial thing for Junkrat. I think previously Junkrat's central design challenge has been that you do a ton of damage, but a very large percentage of it is just healed and never goes towards a kill, which is a huge problem when you're building a Riptire in exchange for enemy healer ults, right? So you're building your Riptire, but they're building a sound barrier and a nano boost, and when the Riptire is like slow and isn't going to get kills against people with really strong aim, then realistically you're giving them ultimates, and if you don't get something out of the Riptire, it's like you're just granting them support ultimates, right? They don't have to do anything for it. They run no risks for it, because it's not like they're fighting. They're just eating spam, so they know that they can heal it. They're at no risk of actually dying. So I think that making the ultimate stronger, so making the trading ultimate with supports isn't quite such a bad trade, is another really, really important change for Junkrat. I think he'll probably be, pretty strong in lower levels. I think this is definitely a buff, even at the lower elo. But at high elo, at least he's going to be playable and not like a complete joke of a hero. This combined with, of course, Doomfist being much better at dealing with D.Va, I think you might see some crazy compositions with some Junkrat, some Doomfist, some Zarya. I think hopefully this patch is going to break things open a lot, at least at the beginning, and I think people are going to see a ton more variety once these PTR changes come live.
I know personally that's all I want from Junkrat, is just occasionally, just once every 3 tournaments, just somebody play him once on one map, just for the hype moment, for the excitement.
At least give me like a niche role, but right now he's actual trash. Like South Korea was running Junkrat as like half troll, because the teams they're playing were so weak that they didn't need to run, like compared to them, that they didn't need to run a good composition. That comp on King's Row is actually kind of legit, so expect to see that next patch. But I'm really, really happy with this change, bottom line. I think the Roadhog changes that allows him to move at full speed while vaping, and also take less damage while vaping, is like, it's like cool, but like Roadhog still sucks. Like it's not gonna be character. It made the character like 2% better, and the character needs to be 10% better to be playable. I think as long as that character can't one-shot things, the amount of ultimate charge that you give to the enemy DPS players is going to make it incredibly hard to justify running the character. Like, if you aren't getting reliable solo kills, then you really just don't want to be playing Roadhog. There's no, he doesn't do anything better than another character. If you want to break shields, you would run you run Junkrat or Bastion or Hanzo or something. Roadhog just doesn't do anything the best, and he's not really a generalist either. The only thing that I could see him being useful for is like shield spamming on a Reinhardt, but I don't think Reinhardt is going to come back this patch either. So I think Roadhog and Ryan are going to be pretty underutilized characters in this upcoming patch. Ryan might see some play, but I'd be just really, really shocked to see Roadhog rise to prominence without the one shot coming back.
Well, let Super know we are very, very excited for just the moment Reinhardt does come back. We even have a drop, an audio cue of ZP yelling about Super's hammer, because he's just that hype. Like, I've never seen somebody be so hype on Reinhardt. Like, man, such big plays. It's a lot of fun to watch. Right? But one last question here before we let you get going, Jake. We draw a lot of comparisons on our show to traditional sports. Blevins is a big basketball fan. I'm a huge NFL football fan, and one of our viewers, Thornrain, he wants to know if you have any favorite sports franchises or any favorite traditional sports that you follow. And I'm sorry to maybe make you bring up your Chargers, because it's just a rough time for them. But
I've never really followed professional sports too much. I like to watch like the premier competition and everything though. Like I'll always catch like the NBA Finals, Super Bowl, Stanley Cup, World Cup, FIFA, right? Like I'll try and catch those games because I love to see any game being played at like the highest level. So for me, that's the biggest thing. It's just seeing a game played really well is always awesome to watch. I don't think I really have the time to be the diehard sports fan in terms of like how much I practice and focus on esports. But I definitely am a fan of traditional sports in the general sense. I don't know if I have exactly teams except Mets. Go Mets.
There you go.
Other than that.
Well, I don't know if we need to do any analysis on that Go Mets call right there or not. Given the question you didn't answer earlier, shout outs to you, Mr. Wilpon. You know how to contact Jake. But for myself, man, I really appreciate you coming on and talking to us, putting up with our questions, and best of luck to you going forward. I cannot wait to see the LGE, the LG Evil lineup back in action, and of course, we all have November circled on our calendars here for the World Cup.
Yes,
absolutely, man. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me. Yeah,
and before you leave, is there any shout outs or anything you want to give? You want to throw out?
Shout out to Kyle for being a great coach. Kai Sauter, just was a really amazing coach in the sense that, we were a really short-lived team, and, we didn't have much, not short-lived in the sense that we're dying, and Team USA, don't worry, guys, we'll make it to BlizzCon. But short-lived in the sense that, as a young team just coming together off tryouts, it's very hard to, build that team synergy from nothing and just go from baseline to, really, really synergistic, high-level coordinated play. That's difficult and it takes time. But I think Kyle did a really good job of setting the tone from day one in tryouts that, team play and synergy was going to be very highly prioritized, and then following through with that in practice and making sure that, it seemed like always when he would give feedback in practice and scrims, it was always about how one individual player could do more to service the goals of the team. Mm-hmm. He wasn't criticizing that play. He was suggesting, look, if you play in this style or you try to prioritize, this goal, you can actually maybe gain more value for the team as a whole. And I think that the responsiveness that all of my teammates on Team USA showed to that is what made us such a great team, what let us adapt and survive as we, iterated through strategies even on the floor of the World Cup itself. So that was amazing from him. So thank you, Coach Kaikai.
And Kaikai, also keep giving hexagrams grief and keep dressing like the best person at the World Cup. I want to see an even crazier outfit at the finals there. Might be a little cold in November for what he was wearing this time.
Yeah,
not in Anaheim.
That's
though.
True.
That's
true.
Anaheim.
I'm in Buffalo. It'll be sub-zero with a foot of snow here. But...
There's no winters in California. There's 2 seasons. It's summer, and fire.
Oh, okay. See, we've got winter and then road construction. Those are our 2 seasons. That's all we've got here. So.
Yeah. So. Jake, again, really huge thanks for coming on the show. And for better or for worse, you're always going to be a friend of the podcast. If there's anything that you ever need, we'll always be there for you. So, yeah, again, huge thanks to Jake, the team captain for the Overwatch World Cup for Team USA. And now we're going to pass it right back to the past podcast versions of all of us. Thanks again, Jake, and we will see you guys in just a second. Boy, that was just a great interview, man.
Yep, not awkward at all for anybody watching live. That's for sure. It wasn't weird in the slightest.
Not even a little bit. It was just really fast. It was that fast. But again, huge shout outs to Jake for coming on the show and having such a great interview. Hope you had a good time, buddy. And
Team USA teammate Cool Matt coming up next week. Really great interview. We've already done it, so we can tell you confidently. There's Overwatch League news in there that we didn't mention today because I want it to be new for you guys in the interview. So make sure you keep an eye out for that. And yeah, big thanks from my end. I'll just kind of close us out here a little bit with just telling everybody, head on over to highnoonpodcast.com. There's a host page with all of our personal contact information and links. Also links to all the social media outlets that the show is on as well. So make sure you guys check us out there. We always love hearing from the fans. And there's even a link to the Discord server. We've talked about it a lot, but we've broken Overwatch League news in there. I'm going to break it again. The Discord's going to hear what Matt told us ahead of time and what that news is. So that's the place to be if you want to get all the information and get to interact a little bit with myself and the Blevins.
Yeah, and we're bringing in the pro players that we interview as well. So they get a cool little title and stuff, and you can ask them questions.
They stay for varying degrees of time, so they might not always be there. Some of them do go.
They can stay as long as they want, but they're not guaranteed. So get in as a pleb like myself. You should get in the Discord channel sooner rather than later and try to get your questions in. We do also take questions for the interviews beforehand, so there's that as well. You can also, again, huge shout outs to all the patrons from this week and all other weeks. You can head on over to patreon.com/highnoonpodcast if you'd like to show us support there. But the best way to support us, as always, is with an Apple iTunes review. Head on over to the iTunes review link, leave us a review, and let us know what you think.
Please.
That's going to be it, guys. Again, huge thanks to everyone. Huge thanks to Matcherino for sponsoring our SoundCloud. All the SoundCloud users can thank Matcherino for that. Huge thanks to Adam Hoek, who created and let us use the awesome outro music, which you are about to hear. That's going to be it, guys. Remember, I am the Blevins. For Deathblow, it's high noon.
Got his boots and he put on his hat. Threw the coin away that same day. It's in his past and he's not looking back. He says, finding mine now, God's my way. He's not good, but he sure ain't bad. He'll make amends for the sins that he has. He says, I'll change the world one bullet at a time till I find mine.
Soldier says, new battle mercy's the one who actually needs healing.